So thank you everyone for being here today. We're going to get started now. But hello and welcome to the Kathak. Let them pronounce the yoga, but I'm trying really hard to pronounce it. Kathak Yoga, meditation in motion and empowerment through dance. On behalf of the HER-DU committee, I want to thank you all for being here today and taking part in the 26th annual HER-DU conference. My name is Eden, and I serve on the logistics committee for the conference, and I'm so delighted to be here today and be a part of the session. I want you to introduce you to our conference volunteers, Tamara, and our IT video service member, Weston. We will all be on the Zoom session together. Should anything come up related to tech, general questions about the conference, or whatever's just on your mind, we'll be here to help facilitate that. For any questions that we receive regarding today's regarding today's session, we're going to be using a strategy called progressive stacking. This is a technique intended to give marginalized voices a chance to speak, particularly in an environment where a dominant group might be present, which means if you choose to self-identify as belonging to a marginalized racial or ethnic group, we ask that the questions that you submit in the chat, you put a little asterisk on the corner of it so that we know to look for those questions and kind of put them up at more as a priority to ask. So it's not required, it's just an option, but we'll try our best to get to all the questions as they come in. So now let me introduce you to today's presenters, Rhea and Carrie. So take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Eden. Namaskar, everyone. We are so happy to be here with you today. So I want to dive in. We only have an hour, so there's so much we want to share with you and so much to do. So basically, my name is Carrie McCune, and this is Leela DasGupta. We are part of the Leela Dance Collective, which is an Indian American dance collective that focuses on Kathak dance and Hindustani classical music, two of the classical art forms of India, North India in particular. Leela is comprised of the Leela Institute of Kathak, and within it is the Leela Dance Collective, which is our performing company that Rhea and I are a part of. It also houses the Leela Academy, which is all of our educational programming, and Leela Foundation, which is our financial infrastructure for the arts. So we are kind of everything Leela, everything Kathak, and we're so excited to be here talking about Kathak Yoga. A little bit of background information. I said my name is Carrie. I'm a light-skinned woman with a bun, bright pink lips, wearing orange in a tan and wood room. And I actually went to DU. I graduated in 2014 with a Bachelor's of Music in trumpet, classical trumpet performance. And I met, when I was at school there, I met Dr. Sarah Morelli, the ethnomusicology professor here at DU. And she is the one who brought Kathak into my life and has done a lot to bring Kathak into Denver and Colorado. So she is the one that runs Leela Denver, based here, and I think she's performed actually for HER-DU before. So just a shout out to Dr. Sarah Morelli. She also runs a Kathak ensemble at DU if you're involved in the school and want to learn a little bit more after this. But I'm going to go ahead and give it over to Rhea to describe a little bit about what Kathak is before we present a short performance for you today.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Namaskar, everybody. It's so good to be with you. Namaskar means that the good and the divine in me greets and recognizes what is good and divine in you. You may have heard of namaste before. It's the same word. We just say namaskar because our guru, our head teacher, from whom the lineage has been passed down, was Bengali. So we say namaskar, which is the way you say namaste in Bengali, just so you know. So it's so good to be here. Carrie and I are here to present a grain of salt of Kathak. Kathak is a vast ocean, and we are presenting one grain of it to you today. Kathak is a North Indian classical dance form, and Kathak comes from the word katha, which means story. And so a kathaka, a person who does Kathak, is a storyteller. So by the end of the session, if you don't feel like we've told you a story, please let us know, because that means we're not doing our jobs properly. Okay. So why are we presenting Kathak at a conference that focuses on women's empowerment? That is the question that I actually bring to all of you. Carrie and I have our own answers, but based on what we do today and what we show you, I think we would love to hear why you think we presented this at this conference. And we will absolutely present and give you our own reasons. So Kathak, just a little bit of history, it's really funny because the closed captioning earlier auto-corrected Kathak to Catholic, which is hilarious. But it's ironic because Kathak is older than Christianity. Kathak is more than 2,000 years old, and it begins as a storytelling art form, which is why we center storytelling in the art form. Kathak begins because people wanted to tell stories, and they wanted to share those stories, so they went from village to village and shared stories of great epics, of love, of heroism, of bravery, tragedy, and all of the daily mundane things like making butter or washing clothes or bathing by the river. Okay, so Kathak is both the ordinary and the extraordinary when we're telling stories. So it starts as a storytelling art form, but what happens is, of course, South Asia is overcome with various invasions and takeovers and colonialism and all of that. So Kathak has transformed through the history of South Asia. And one of the transformations is that it came from the streets, as I like to say. It got taken off the streets and got put into the courts, the Mughal courts. So the Mughal dynasty ruled South Asia for 300 years, maybe give or take a few hundred years. For 300 years. And the Mughals recognized the power, the beauty, and the immense artistic depth of Kathak. So they said, we want this in front of us at all times. We don't have time to go to y'all in the streets. We were going to take that art form and we want you to come into the courts. So they took the head honchos of the art form, so to speak, and they brought them into the courts. And they nurtured those artists, and therefore they nurtured the art. They gave those artists homes, obviously money, food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, all the things that we all want to on a day-to-day basis. The Mughal rulers gave that to these artists. And because of that, because of rulers who were Muslim, Kathak was able to thrive and retain some of its Hindu aspects. Okay, so within Kathak and within the history, within the art form, you will see and should always see aspects of both Hinduism and Islam. And that is a very brief snippet of the history of Kathak. Why does this pertain to women? Women play an incredibly important role in making this art form survive through the centuries. The head artists of the art form were women. Women were taken care of. Women were given property. Women were given the space to be artists. And that's the most socio-political reason that I can give you for why we're presenting at this conference. But there's more than that, and that's what the purpose of this presentation is. Okay, so we can talk more about the history, and I can go on and on because I'm a history buff, so I can go on and on, but we want to get into the presentation. So, Carrie, should I begin? What should I do? What do you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll just say a little bit, and then we can dive in, I guess. Yeah, we're going to present 4 pieces for you. In a perfect world, Ria, my dear dance sister, and I would be together, sweating together in the same room. But because we're, of course, on Zoom, we're going to kind of go 1, 1, 1, 1. But so we're each going to do 2 pieces for you, kind of demonstrating many different aspects of Kathak Yoga. And I just want to kind of define this term to set us off before we start. Kathak Yoga was a term that was coined by our Guruji, Pandit Chitresh. He's credited for bringing Kathak to the US. He arrived in 1970 and he just wanted to share Kathak with the world. He wanted it to be as popular as ballet. You know, he wanted it on every street corner, you know, a Kathak school, and he wanted it in the big concert hall and on the stage. So he came to the US and he didn't have a lot of artists to work with. And he, you know, had the goal to train tons and tons of dancers to spread this art form and to grow it in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. So he started playing his tabla while he was dancing and singing in class. And he kind of started to realize something magical was happening, that when he was singing the melody, dancing the rhythms, reciting the syllables or bowls that correlate with the rhythms, and playing an instrument, you know, either a percussion instrument like the tabla, or some people play the harmonium or manjira, finger cymbals, that something was happening that was really unifying of his mind, body, and spirit. It was taking everything, every ounce of concentration that he had to be able to do all of these things at one time. So this is kind of what we call Kathak Yoga. So it can be anything from dancing a footwork pattern and singing and playing an instrument to doing a piece, but doing the musical accompaniment yourself. So today you'll see a lot of different varieties of ways that we do quote unquote Kathak Yoga. It won't look exactly like a yoga you might recognize, but yoga meaning unity, it has that kind of feeling throughout it. So I'll pass it off to you, Ria, to start the first piece.
Thank you. So the first piece that I'm going to do is a series of shloka. So shloka are basically verses that we chant to bring us higher to spiritual enlightenment, basically. So I'm going to be doing 3 shloka. And these shloka take, well, I'll explain them to you very literally. So the first shloka is called Ya Devi. Ya Devi is invoking the spiritual, the divine feminine, the divine mother, the divine maternal, divine, whatever you want to call it, but the divine feminine energy of the universe. And it has, it is invoking Durga, who is, as I like to say, the head honcho goddess in Hinduism. But really, it's not only about Durga. It's about so much more than Durga. It's the universal feminine. The second shloka is called Angikam Bhuvanam, ... It goes on and on. And this shloka is about Shiva. Shiva is the embodiment of the cosmic masculine energy. So taking all of the energy that is masculine in the universe and centering it within ourselves. The last shloka is called Om Purnam. And I'm going to actually translate this one because I actually think this is the one that's most important to translate. Om Purnam, this shloka is saying, this is full, that is full. When you take full from full, full remains. When you add full to full, full is still there. So I want you to think about, why is it that we're taking a shloka about the divine feminine, the divine masculine, and then ending it with a shloka that's talking about fullness and the infinite possibilities of fullness. Okay, so without further ado, let me do this shloka. I'm going to take this off so I don't choke on it, but and hopefully you'll be able to hear me. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you can hear that drone, but it's not overpowering. Okay, awesome. You can use your little Zoom emojis, perfect. Okay. So the first shloka, Ya Devi. And I invite you to close your eyes, whatever you want to do. You can watch me, you can listen to me, you can do whatever you need to do. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matri-rupena sanstita. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti-rupena sanstita. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shanti-rupena sanstita. Namastasye, 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 namo namaha. Angikam bhuvanam yasya vachikam sarvavangmayam aharya chandrataradi tam namo satvikam shivam. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnata Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Take it away, Carrie.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ria, for those beautiful shlokas. Wonderful. Okay, so the next portion is going to be a presentation of a Kathak Yoga piece that is nrit, meaning pure dance. So although we often do tell stories, we have the nrit, which is the pure dance, and the nritya, which is the storytelling. So this is going to be pure dance, and it's going to use a pattern of footwork, and it's dha tarikita dhin. So you're going to hear me singing the footwork pattern that mimics the feet with a melody on top, and I'm also going to be playing some manjira or finger cymbals this way. I will say that this portion is going to be a little bit louder, so be prepared if you do need to turn down the volume on your computer, you can do so. Also, the melody I'll be singing is called Kalashri. This is based on a Hindustani rag, very beautiful melody using mostly major notes, or I call them happy notes. Yes, without further ado, this is Dha Tarikita Dhin. This really quickly.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That was beautiful. Carrie, I attempted to explain via chat what you were doing while you were dancing, and I hope it was helpful. But she's basically doing 3 things at once, and the 3 things don't necessarily line up. So just wanted to let you know that this is the Kathak Yoga aspect. Attuning your mind, your heart, and your speech so that those 3 things line up, that she's doing arrhythmically and asynchronously to line up so that you can achieve a meditative place. And one of the audience members asked where our bells come from. And I wanted to answer it live because I think it's a very important question. I'm going to do that right now. Our bells are handmade. We make them. So that you can't buy these bells online. They're 150 bells and 50 feet of string that we string by hand, and it takes years. No, it doesn't take years. It takes a few days. But and when you get the bells, there's a ceremony in which the bells are blessed by your teachers and by the lineage. And these are, like 3 pounds of weights on our ankles, just so you get a sense of what we're doing. So this is a weight-bearing exercise. It's very good cardio for anybody who's looking for a good cardio workout. But I just wanted to give you a sense of how deep the meditative aspect goes, that we even make our bells so that we feel a deep connection to them and respect them and are able to get to that enlightened state even by making our bells. So I hope that answered your question. I think it was, who was it who asked? I want to acknowledge you. Valerie. Yes, Valerie, I hope that answered your question. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, Carrie, if that's okay. So I am now going to do a piece which is more of a piece that is based in expression, abhinaya, a piece which centers storytelling and expression. So what Carrie did just now is pure dance. She could have added a story if she wanted, but it would become a different piece. So I'm going to do a piece now which is pure expression, pure storytelling. And this piece is about Radha and Krishna. And that is almost circumstantial that it's about Radha and Krishna. And I almost want you to kind of forget that I even said that, because what I want you to take away from it is that it's about a masculine energy and a feminine energy, and those two energies interacting, okay? You can ask me about Radha and Krishna later, and we can talk about Radha and Krishna. But for now, I want you to focus on what is happening in the story and the interaction between the energies, and how I, as the dancer, weave between the characters. And if you can see where that change happens, and if I'm able to do it successfully, and what is it that I do with my body and my expression to show the more feminine energy, and what is it that I do with my energy and my expression to show the more masculine energy. Okay, so this piece is called Natavari Nritya, which is another word for Kathak, actually. So this is just a basic Kathak piece. Okay, and please keep your questions in mind, because we're here to answer your questions. My nephew is here watching as well. He may make an appearance. So there's a beginning portion where I'll introduce the characters and see if you can tell who is who. And then I'll do a little snippet of a story. And I want to see if you can tell what's happening without me explaining. I can explain after. You too. I'm pointing at my nephew so he can also figure out what's happening. Te te dhen ta dhen tha dha dhen ta dhen tha dha dhen ta dhen tere na dhen ta te te dhen ta dhen tha kita tha ta ka thunga ta ki te ta ka te ka ta ga thi kena dha dha ta ke thunga dha ta ke thunga dha ge dhinge dha dha dhen ta the ta kita dha ta ka thunga ta ki te ta ka te ka ta ga thi kena dha.
Beautiful, Ria. Thank you so much for that wonderful rendition of Natvari Nritya. I love how you can see somebody, in the chat already was like, Krishna, they could tell the moment that you evoked that energy, that it was there. And I don't know if you caught, but there was this back and forth, right? She would become Krishna, and then with a turn or a flourish, all of a sudden become Radha and change energies. Great. Okay, so I want to make sure that we have enough time to get to the workshop portion where you get to actually try this out for yourself and get up and dance. So we're going to close out the performance portion for you. I'm going to do a Saval Javab, which means question and answer in Kathak Yoga. I'll be singing another Lahara, this time in a faster speed, a faster Laya. I started in Vilambit Laya with the Kathak Yoga portion. Ria danced in Vilambit Laya for Natvari Nritya. Now we're going to actually speed up to the fastest Laya, Drut Laya. And I will dance a portion of footwork, and you'll see kind of the question happen on the right side, and then the answer kind of reply with my left foot on the left side. And then I'll conclude with a series of chakras or turns. And the chakra is the quintessential turn in Kathak dance. It's very unique as you turn on the heel of your foot, not the ball of your foot. And they're very fun. Feels like you're flying. Kind of the balance to the footwork. Our footwork is the thing that grounds us and connects us to the earth. And our turns are the things that give us flight and connect us, to the heavens. So this will be Saval Javab with 27 turns to finish. Hopefully I get all 27 in there. And I'm going to turn this on here. Can you all hear the drone in the background? Awesome. Switch here. All right, thank you so much. So that was some fun, fast footwork and turns, kind of the athletic side that kind of complements the softer side. So let me check our time here. Okay, so I want to make sure we get up and dancing. So Ria, should we start with some Datgar and then I can send it over to you?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
And I was thinking, Carrie, that maybe let's just do Tatgar for now, and maybe I'll do some veil pulling. I want to make sure that people have time for questions, so we can cut it a little bit shorter.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So at this point, we're going to invite you to turn on your video if you would like to, if you feel comfortable. And we will do a workshop, give you a chance to kind of try this at home, understand what's happening when we're dancing. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my view to gallery to see if any folks want to dance along, so I can kind of help you as we go. Again, don't feel like you have to, but it's a fun way for us to connect. So basically, we're going to start. We're going to start with what we call our tal, or a rhythmic cycle. As you heard in the last piece, I was saying da din din da din din da na din din da da din din da, and that was repeating over and over. So this is a rhythmic cycle that helps us keep track. In Hindustani classical music and in Kathak, once this cycle starts, it's like a clock, and it never stops, and you're always coming back to beat one. So first, what I want to do is I want us to count the numbers of the tal on our hands. So I'm going to mirror you, so hopefully it makes more sense when you're looking, but you're going to have your left hand out flat, palm up, and we're going to use the right hand to count. So we're going to start with a clap, and that's going to be beat one. And then we're always going to go pinky ring middle for the next one. So we're going to go 1, 2 on the palm, 3, 4. Then we're going to go finger to finger, 5, and then the pinkies are going to touch, 6, ring fingers touch, 7, middle fingers touch, 8. Then we do a wave for 9. With the right hand, we touch our thumb to our pinky like this, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then on the wrist, 13, 14, 15, counting, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 1. Beautiful. So this is our rhythmic cycle. This is what's going to house everything we do. Next, we're going to add our melody on top of these numbers. So I'm going to sing a melody, and I want you to try and sing along. You're on mute. Nobody can hear you, so don't worry if you're not exactly right. You know, have fun, sing it out, and just try and match my voice. So we're going to actually start on 13, and it's going to be the same melody you heard me singing before, kind of a little earworm there. So we're going to start here. 13, 14, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, wave 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, one more time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 1. Beautiful. Okay, so now we have the dal, we have the melody. Now it's time to get the feet going. So here we're going to start with Tatkar. Tatkar is Tatkar. This is our basic footwork pattern of Kathak. So I'm going to do it so you can see my feet, hopefully. The pattern is right, left, 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 right, left, right. And we're gonna lift up the whole foot and slap it on the ground like a belly flop, like this. So we're gonna go right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right. Just like that, our 8-step pattern. So this is what we call Tatkar Karat, our body position. Our hands are clasped in front like this, one hand over the other. Our upper body makes a diamond. And then our feet make just a small 45-degree angle V. So they don't have to be too wide like ballet, just a little bit of a V, heels together. So let's try that a couple times, doing our right, left, right, left, left, right pattern. Here we go. And right, left, right, left, and left. Right, left, right. Again, right, left, right, left, and left, right, left. 2 more times. And right, left, right, left, and left, right, left, right, and right, left, right, left, and left, right, left, right. Beautiful. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use bowls or syllables to describe this footwork pattern. I'm going to type it in the chat really quickly. Autocorrect never really likes these bowls. Hey turns to they. There we go. They ate that. So this might look like gibberish at first, but we're going to say ta, hey, that, ah, hey, that. So I put it in the chat so you can read it. If you see, this pattern mimics the Tatkar footwork pattern. The ta is the right foot and the ah is the left foot. And the rest is repeated. So now let's try that footwork pattern, but using these syllables. So here we go. Ready, and da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, and hold. Beautiful. So now you know all 3 components, and of course it's time to put it all together. So we're going to sing our counts 1 through 16 while we're doing our footwork with our feet. And once we get a handle on that, we're going to make the feet go a little faster. So just do your best to follow along. And my advice is, no matter what, keep singing. Try and keep singing and try and keep your feet moving. Here we go. 13, 14, 15, 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Now with the bowls of Tatkar. And da, hey, da, da, ah, hey, da, 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 hey, da, 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 hey. Now we're going to double our feet. Here we go. And da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, 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 hey, da, ah, hey, da, da, hey, da, da, ah, hey, da, da, hey. We're going to try and double one more time. Here we go. And da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, da, hey, da, ah, hey, da, da. Double one more time. And da, hey, 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 da. Beautiful. Okay, so hopefully you got the chance to feel what that feels like. Thank you so much, Eden, for dancing along. It's so fun to see people trying it and experiencing it for the first time. But as you can see, this is why Ria and I are addicted to this art form. You start practicing and every worry just goes out of your brain. There's no room for any of that. And it's so, it just takes every part of your being. It takes your creative mind, your critical mind, it takes your spirituality, your emotionality, and really is explorative. So I'm going to toss it over. Ria, do you want to do any veil pulling, or should we go straight to questions?
I would love to hear some questions if that's okay. We can always pull some veils afterwards. Are there any questions? You're welcome to type them in the chat or unmute yourself, whatever you'd like. How long have we been doing this, Carrie?
I'm coming up on, I just passed my 8-year Kathak anniversary, I believe. So yeah, 8 years for me.
And I started in 2014, so I think that's 7 years? Yeah. What inspired us to get involved? That's a great question. I can start. So I actually, my dance background is in ballet. I did ballet for most of my life, and then probably kept doing that because I was ashamed of being a daughter of immigrants, as I think many people who are daughters of and sons and children of immigrants probably have that phase where they're ashamed of their culture and ashamed of their parents. I think everybody's ashamed of their parents at some point, right? That's what happens. So I did ballet, and then thankfully later in life, in my 20s, had an amazing opportunity to start learning classical Indian dance. And it was just the right time because I think many of us have some kind of awakening about our identities in our 20s. And so it was a perfect time to think about what it meant to be a South Asian person living in the United States, and not quite here, not quite there, not quite American, not quite South Asian, and exploring my identity and finding that dance actually turned out to be the best place to explore my identity. So now my parents make fun of me that I'm like more South Asian than they are because you learn so much about the culture that actually I just as a quick anecdote, 2 weeks ago I was teaching and I asked my students if they had learned, so many of my students are either South Asian immigrants or first generation South Asians. And I asked many of them, especially the ones who grew up in India and South Asia, did you learn about Kathak or any South Asian dance forms when you were in school? And they all said no. None of us learned anything about our own culture growing up in South Asia. So ironically, it took a first-gen South Asian person to teach them about the art form that they grew up surrounded by. Imagine, talk about globalization, right? So yes, that's my long answer to to what made me want to do this dance form.
And I have a very different path to this art form, as you can imagine. I was getting my bachelor's degree in classical trumpet performance at DU, and I studied abroad. I studied abroad in Brazil, and when I was there, I actually got injured and couldn't play trumpet. I had to take a bit of a break, and I kept going out to samba clubs and learning samba and learning to dance and learning the rhythmic patterns. I danced as a kid, but gave it up for music. I was told I had to pick one, so I gave up dance and chose trumpet. And then when I was studying abroad, I just felt so deeply that so many other cultures have music and dance so beautifully intertwined and inseparable. And, every night I was going out and going to a samba club, and the percussionists were there and the dancers were here, and there was this dynamic conversation happening every night. It wasn't separate at all. It couldn't be separate. And I came back to school and I thought, I need to learn more about this. And I just feel like, the music and the dance are separate in my experience, so much so that I had to pick one or the other. And that's where I met Dr. Sarah Morelli. She was like, I'm an ethnomusicologist. This is what I love. This is what my life is about. And you should stop by my Kathak class. I have a feeling you'll really like it. So I took one day of Kathak and was like, this is my life. This is amazing. How perfect is this? You know, I'm a singer. I'm a percussionist. I don't really do trumpet and Kathak at this point. That's okay that I can be separate. But it just has everything I've ever loved in one practice, one art form. So I was really sold. And she also took me and a couple other students to San Francisco to meet Pandit Chitresh actually the year before he passed away. And I got to go and meet him and dance in a 4-day long dance intensive, 8 hours a day, and meet this community. I had studied in Denver for a year, and there were 4 or 5 of us, but there were 100 students in San Francisco. And, I walked into a room full of these guru, these bells, and singing and dancing and sweating, and I just felt so wrapped up in this giant community that was all about the art form. So I was just kind of sold. I was an early adopter. Adoptee, I guess I should say. But that was my journey. I think I saw another question. Do you find yourself making rhythms to Kathak to modern music? I love this question. Let's see. If Guruji were here, he would say, that all art is a language, and that all languages can have ways to intermingle and to translate to each other. He was a huge believer in artistic exchange, not necessarily fusion, trying to make 2 things into one, but understanding how one art form can talk to another one and what they have in common and what they don't have in common. So he did a collaboration with Jason Samuel Smith, a world-class tap dancer that toured the world, India Jazz Suites, and it is dynamite. 2 footwork-centric art forms that have so much in common that grew up on other sides of the world. He also did a collaboration with a flamenco artist, again, another footwork, rhythmic-centric art form. And our didis, our dance teachers, our Guruji's senior students, the ones that trained with him in the Guru Shishya Parampara, or the traditional student guru kind of discipleship, for some upwards of 20 years. 2 of our didis, Rachna Navas and Reena Mehta, started a collaboration of tap and Kathak, kind of following in this lineage of understanding the way the different art forms talk to each other, and it's called Speak. And it's actually 4 female artists, 2 tap dancers and 2 Kathak dancers. And there's some video footage on YouTube out there. You can check out our website, leela.dance/speak. Has a lot of information about that collaboration. But definitely, I would say, once you really get immersed in the art form, you see how it could interact with all sorts of other things. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I just want to riff off of that a little bit, pun intended here. But I was listening to You Can't Turn It Off. Once that rhythmic sensibility is in your brain, you cannot turn it off. Okay, so I drive my family a little bit bonkers because, for example, yesterday we were listening to Lil Nas X, and Lil Nas X's music is perfect for Kathak. It's perfect for doing tatkar. It's perfect for rhythmic improvisation, or upaj, which is actually what this documentary is named after. So yes, once you hear the rhythm, you can't turn it off, and you can find the rhythm in anything. And if you can't, then you can make it yourself. So I will absolutely say that. And it's not a coincidence that so many of our teachers, and us included, had some kind of musical background. So Carrie is a professional musician. She's a trumpet player. My teacher is Sabi Lee, who is in the Bay Area, who's in Berkeley. She is still, but was a professional harpist before she started Kathak. And she says all the time that Kathak is the thing that allowed me to take all of the disparate things that I love and am excited by and passionate about and put it into one art form. And I think that's why so many of us are drawn to it. It's, if you're a dancer, obviously, but if you're a musician, if you're a poet, if you're a philosopher, if you're a mathematician, for crying out loud, it'll bring it all together in one art form. So we're very, very fortunate. Any other questions coming up for people?
I don't see any more. Oh,
How
how
often
often do you teach your practice? Great question. Our mantra is practice, practice, practice. You can never practice enough, and especially in a classical art form. We say it's the ocean, and we'll never see the whole ocean, but drop by drop, we try as much as we can. We want to be immersed in it as much as we can. But we teach through Leela Academy. Ria and I both teach 3 or 4 classes a week of all different levels, ages, and abilities. Right now we're all online, so we're actually teaching people from around the world. I have a student in Serbia right now, so when she's dancing, it's a whole different light and time of day than when I'm dancing. But yeah, I think we teach or take classes for 10 to 20 hours a week, and then personal practice is, the goal is, 3 hours a day. We all have varying day jobs and night jobs and midday jobs and all of that sort of thing. So the practice ebbs and flows, but as much as we can.
And I think that the practice is what makes the art form. So kind of to bring it full circle, Carrie saying ideally we want to practice 3 or 4 hours a day. Well, actually, ideally we would be all living together and dancing and learning together. And to kind of circle back to why this is such an empowering art form for women is because the place that it thrived was exactly that kind of place, a place where women lived together, learned together, created beautiful art together, and were supported to do that. And so when we think about what is the type of society that we want to live in and what type of world we want to live in, wouldn't you all want to live in a world where you are supported to make your art, whatever art form that may be? Everybody has their own art form. So I think that when we talk about women's empowerment, we're really talking about artistic empowerment, and we're talking about humane empowerment. That's the type of world we want to live in. And we are fortunate enough that we get to experience an ounce of what those women experienced and what those women were able to bring into the world. We're very fortunate.
I saw one more question pop up in the chat. I don't know if we have time can we go over a couple minutes or, okay. Great, so I see a question from Neda, I believe. How do y'all feel about conversations on learning practice of Kathak and being mindful of cultural appropriation versus appreciation with this beautiful art? And, this is something I interface with constantly. I'm super white, so it's really important for me to constantly address this and understand it and deepen my understanding of this topic in particular. I think the most important thing for me is that I focus my energy on learning this art form and doing this art form justice, and that it doesn't then turn into a platform about me or what I'm doing, but that my focus is on the brilliance of this art form and helping create a long-term sustainable future for this art form. Mm-hmm. It's something that all of us talk about, is that, ask 10 people if they know what Kathak even is, right? Mm-hmm. We're starting from such a disadvantage in that people don't even know about our art form, let alone our, sustain it in the world and in a long-term future. So to me, it's constantly doing justice to the art form and working with my dance sisters along that path.
And Neda, if I could just answer that too, that in many ways, I have to grapple with that too as a non-South Asian first-gen person growing up in this country. You know, how much is this art form really mine? If I'm an American citizen, was born and grew up in this country, how much of it is really mine? I mean, for the sake of argument, Carrie knows as much, if not more, about this art form than I do. As a musician, as a person who studies the culture, has learned music, the Hindustani classical music system from a teacher. So it always is a check of our egos, which I think is really, really important. So who does culture ever belong to? Who does it really belong to? And I think if we search deep down in our souls, we'll always come to the conclusion that the art form is for everybody and culture is for everybody. If you treat it, as Carrie is saying, if you treat it right, if you treat it correctly, if you nourish it, which we are so fortunate to do. And I'll just again mention my teacher, Sabi Lee, who is half Chinese, half Japanese, grew up in Canada, and can be put up against any Kathak dancer in the world and probably will, outdance them, outsing them, outrecite them. And I'm very proudly say that. So who does it belong to is what I'll just leave the question to everybody.
All right. Well, with that, I learned a ton today. So thank you, Carrie and Ria, for teaching us percussion, history, music, around the world and back. Wow, I'm in awe. So thank you for being here. Thank you for presenting this important topic. Yeah, and I hope that everyone walked away with some new information than they knew before. I know I did for sure, and did not know this form existed. So I know more now. So thank you. And if everyone also wants to put accolades in the chat, feel free to do so now. But yeah.
Thank you, Eden and Weston and Tamara, for your support and your help through with this presentation.
Yes, thank you all so much.
All right. Well, in that case, I will sign everybody off, and I bid you farewell. Have a good day,
everybody.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.